The Tao of Self-Confidence, episode 279. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have an amazing lady on the show today. She has many tricks up her sleeve. She's a CEO, a coach and mentor, a global entrepreneur, a best-selling author, a speaker, a philanthropist, and a real estate investor, and I'm just really excited to have her on and share her story and tips with us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Joni Young. Joni, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to our listeners.
Absolutely. Hello, Sheena. This is Joni Young. Hi to all the listeners. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for this opportunity to chat with you today. So sure, I would love to elaborate. Well, what I basically do is, as a CEO, coach, and mentor, I work with high-performing CEOs and executive teams and helping them grow their company and business. And in the interim, I make a lot of good friends. And I love what I do, and it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Joni, what's your cultural background?
My cultural background is I was born in Taiwan. My parents are of Chinese descent. They were immigrants from China, mainland China, immigrated to Taiwan, and I was born in Taiwan. Immigrated to the States when I was 10 years old. And however, I was raised as a bilingual, so I do speak, read, and write fluently in Chinese Mandarin. And came here at 10 years old, and none of us spoke any English. My parents just kind of came here on the decision of pursuing that American dream. So we packed our bags once our papers came through and came here and enhanced the brand new life and journey and the challenges and the triumphs begun.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
My favorite self-confidence quote over the years has many. For today, this is my latest and greatest, and that is a quote from the Bible verse, Philippians 4:13, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I love how the Bible has all these life lessons. When you kind of study them, it really just kind of gives us that confidence boost to realize that we are more than enough to go out there and do all sorts of amazing things. So, I love that you shared that verse. And in your own words, how would you define self-confidence?
Great question. I love this topic because it really, requires a boatload of answers. So I'll try to keep it very simple for today's purposes. I think of these words more like confidence in self rather than, self-confidence. It's you got to start with the confidence and then the self comes next. What that means to me is that it's I focus on the big picture all the time. You look at something and then you look at the big picture. And that way you maintain yourself in the top view. And I talk about this in my book, which I'll mention in a few minutes. For example, when we first immigrated here to the States, I was 10 years old. My parents, we had a pretty good life in Taiwan. But once we immigrated here, we all fell into this despair of, on top of financial challenges, just that cultural barrier. My parents, as, mid-age adults, had it a lot worse than I did as a child. So, at 10 years old, I really wanted to do something for my family to help them. So I decided that I'm going to make some business. And I made that my mission because I didn't want my family to suffer. I wanted to help out and hence, the idea of creating some kind of business was born. And so that's the big picture that I'm referring to. You create this mission and then you make a decision that this is what you're going to do. And then you focus on that. And then that's what's going to give you, starting from the mission, is going to create that confidence because you have a mission that's greater than yourself. So then you will keep moving forward. So the story there was I decided to go knock on the doors in this apartment building that we lived in. And It was kind of like a circular building, 2 stories. I started on the door to the left. And at this 10-year-old didn't really speak English. I knew my ABCs, because we had just immigrated here. I just started knocking on doors and, use sign language and just kind of mumble some words and basically asking for work, looking for opportunities to do work for people that lived in the apartment building I lived in. And I went all the way around the building, knocked on probably about 30 some doors. I got a lot of, I got some people slamming the door on me, and some people just smiled and say, no, close the door. And some people said some things to me that I didn't really understand, but basically I knew, that it was a no because they eventually shut the door. So when I came to the last door, which was the apartment unit to the right of my unit, I found this single mother, and I finally got a yes. She needed some work done in her house, and I also helped her babysit. That included babysitting her kids. I remember negotiating this rate. And later I found out that the rate that I negotiated, with the cash rate that I negotiated, was actually twice as much as was the then minimum wage that was on the market. So I became this kid that was able to help my parents buy groceries. I had some money to buy things for myself, and I was known as the richest kid in my neighborhood that didn't really speak English. So more of that story in relevance to self-confidence was that I think number one was I created this mission to help my family. Not knowing English wasn't really in the way because I had a greater mission that's far bigger than myself. Secondly, when I went and knocked on those doors, later I learned that it was actually a blessing in disguise that I didn't understand that many English words, because I didn't understand majority of the rejections, whether they were making fun of me or whatever rejection they said, I didn't understand. So I later learned that that's actually a really good trick is, when you come across the door of rejections or fear, it's a matter of turning on the switch on or off. So that became a mantra that I live by, is merely by switching that switch off. So then I'm able to shut out the mind chatter and focus on the greater mission at hand. And so that's irrelevant in my words, self-confidence means.
Thanks for sharing that. And, I always believe having a huge mission does help you with your self-confidence. When you have something bigger than yourself, or you have something that everyone can fit in, you'll do whatever it takes to just do it.
Absolutely.
So great definition, and love the story. And, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
I think that childhood story from knocking on the door, was launched the whole journey of the self-discovery, self-confidence. I shared this in my book that it's the fishbowl mentality versus the top view mentality. You want to make sure, we live our lives and we kind of create this story, and then next thing you know, we are inside this fishbowl, meaning we're inside the fishbowl and we're looking out, and then we start to wonder what other people think of us, what other people would say if I do this, this person would say that, or these outcomes. So that's what I call the fishbowl mentality. So when I discovered that, I felt this entrapment. And then I extracted myself, and I always made sure that I was above and, on a top view. I'm always above, looking down at the big picture. So once I discovered that, as my biggest success mantra, I live by that faithfully. And that has contributed to huge success in the different things I have pursued. And so before that, it's all that mind chatter that can go on in your mind. After that, and I always focus on the bigger picture, having the bigger view in terms of the direction, what would happen. I think one of the things for Asian that's very big is that we have this cultural belief that if you are not a doctor, lawyer, CPA, or engineer, then you don't have a career, right? So even though I had this this everything in my being, had the entrepreneurial blood, I too fell into that trap of that cultural belief and expectation. So I pursued a career early on out of college in law. I was in litigation for 5 years, did very, very well, but just couldn't get over that yearning of wanting to become an entrepreneur, to own my own business. Because up until then, starting as a child all the way up through college, I've always had some kind of business of my own. So that's, once I discovered that, I pull myself out right away, even though I had invested all that time, energy, and just, all those proud moment remarks from my family and friends that, oh, Joni's going to become this, Joni is this top, hot shot, and she's going to become a hot shot lawyer or whatnot. All that didn't matter anymore once I had clear and I pulled myself out of that fishbowl and I had a clear top view. What do I want my life to look like? And then the rest is history in terms of that whole discovery before and after the confidence level.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I like that fishbowl mentality that you mentioned, because so many of us want to do so many things, but we are so prone to comparing ourselves to other people, thinking like if we step out of that fishbowl, we're going to fail, we're going to screw up, people are going to laugh at us, things like that, not realizing it's okay if that happens. Just get out, step out of that fishbowl and keep going anyways, because like you said, when you have a big picture, a huge mission, nothing will stand in your way. And, to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be in her own journey of self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
The one tip that I would say is in big capital letters is have faith. Have the faith, meaning that believe in the unseen and allow your life to unfold and let it unfold to be able to fully express yourself to its magnitude. And the other side of the token of faith is fear. It's really a fine line to walk on between faith and fear. So make sure that you steer clear on the faith side so that it will overcome any fear that may come along the way.
Thanks for sharing. And if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Yes, I mentioned a little bit about the latest best-selling book that I released. It's called How to Be a Happy and Prosperous CEO. In essence, CEO is not just pertaining to those top corporate executives. Being the CEO, means being the leader of your life first. And in this book, I shared my 8-figure success tips and all real heart-wrenching, real life in the trenches tips. It's a very easy read. I would love it if you can hop on over to joniyoung.com/happy CEO. That's JONIYOUNG.com/happy CEO. I do have a free gift for you, and that's no purchase necessary, just for checking out the book. I love to hear from you, and you can also connect with me at my website.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Joni. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Joni, you can also head on over to the taoofselfconfidence.com and search for Joni's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I just really want to thank Joni for taking the time to share her tips and story with us on self-confidence. So thank you so much.
It's a great pleasure to be here, and to all the listeners out there, believe in yourself, have faith, and God bless you all.
Thanks for that, and it was an honor having you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence, and we'll catch you later. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence. Sign up for our free membership site to get more amazing resources for self-confidence by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.